Welcome to the Silver Screen Project, where we look back at a series of films in anticipation of an exciting new cinema release.
In preparation for Johnny Wickles Chapter 4, we watched Johnny Wickles Chapter 2, Johnny Wickles Chapter 3, Parabellum, and now the main event is here, and we finally watched Johnny Wickles Chapter 4. We are fresh out of the cinema. We've come straight here to record. And Sam, what did you think of Johnny Wickles Chapter 4?
I liked it, yeah. I think it was quite long, but it did hit like a lot of the points that I'd want, a Johnny Wickles film to hit. I think it felt fresher than some of them. It was parts where I was like, this is kind of the same thing, but there was lots of new stuff, and they did the kind of sections of the film quite distinctly. Quite a good cast of characters, new and old, and just pretty fun time, I reckon. What about you?
No, I think I agree. It was good fun more than anything else, as many of these films are. There's been lots of talks of them kind of shelving this for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I think this is quite a good one to
absolutely, I would say,
does kind of finalise a lot of bits.
At least give it a bit of that. On that note, we will be keeping it spoiler free for the first 5 or so minutes. So feel free to.
I think it might be the silliest of the 4 films.
Yeah, I would say so.
There was some intentional bits of humour as like situational humour, and some other bits that are just like, well, that's a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got to say the kind of the lengths of his durability were really tested in this one.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes in other ones he's kind of been knocked about quite a lot, and by the end he's really like he's worse for wear. In this, some of it seemed to not affect him as much as it should have, and
he should have died in this film a few times. Whereas in the other ones it's kind of believable that he's still walking.
yeah, definitely.
And like he gets like, I think it's the first one, he gets like the pills from the doctor that means he can none of that in this. He just keeps
powers
going
on. Yeah. But we get, like you say, a couple of threads kind of resolved in this. Like I said, we won't go too much in the specifics of that, but I feel like most of that was done pretty kind of satisfactorily. Satisfying way.
I think one of the problems I had with the second and third one, that they kind of end with John Wick, you're ex-avocado, and it's like, oh, okay, again. Whereas this kind of doesn't just end with John Wick, your ex-avocado.
It's from the start.
Again.
It's like we know where we want to end it, but we don't know how we're going to get there. That's kind of Johnny Wickles' whole thing, and it's like we got to get there, and then throughout the film, you kind of you figure out how he's going to maybe tie all this off, and he gets a couple of new friends and foes along the way, doesn't he?
Yeah, and there's plenty of new locations as well. There's we praised the first one for having great how the fights look different.
Yes.
And I think this one, far more than the second and third, has different angles and different ways of shooting fights.
And even just like the 3 locations. I mean, we can talk about the locations because if anyone doesn't want it spoiled at all, they're probably not listening to this.
That's true.
Other than New York City, which is one of the kind of backdrops of this throughout the series, we go to Osaka very early on, which has lots of distinct kind of more samurai / ninja style weapons and that sort of thing. There's some excellent bits with specific weapons, which I will save for spoilers because I think that's probably the kind of thing people want to see. And then they go to Berlin towards the middle, don't they?
Yeah.
Which, distinct definitely from the others.
Definitely distinct. It's quite an amusing set piece in Berlin.
Yeah, quite a cartoonish bad guy, which does kind of benefit this. I think it makes it more memorable. And then to Paris for the kind of last hour and a half, maybe. Quite a lot of bits in Paris.
I'd say the second half of the film is kind of all in Paris.
And that's quite fun because it's hitting all the landmarks, and it's like what we saw in the second film when it's just like he's just on the lam, just everyone's after him, but just turned up somehow even more.
I have to say I was disappointed that they visit the Arc de Triomphe at some point and nobody drives through the middle of it.
Yes, that's true.
They go round it.
They do. There's a lot of going around it,
but they never go through it, and I'm like, okay. But it's a big bit of the Eiffel Tower as well, like you said, hitting all the landmarks. As I said, I think the choreography was as good as it's been. There's lots of unique deaths in this that were like something new.
And even like the styles of fighting, like Donnie Yen is one of the kind of semi-antagonists in this. He's set as an antagonist, but they've got a checkered past, as most people do with Johnny Wickles in this. And he's got an individual style. He's much more kind of kung fu. Like the sword style that he has is kind of more of a it's a Chinese sword fighting style, isn't
Yeah.
it? Compared to some other characters that maybe fight with like katanas and that sort of thing, you know.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say Donnie Yen plays a blind character.
No, which is quite funny considering
His
Rogue One is...
the other film I've seen him in. As I said to Sam as he came to the cinema, like, Donnie Yen's not blind, is he?
No, it's just a coincidence that
just keeps playing like super athletic kind of blind guy.
Pretty much, yeah. But you can see some of the action that he does is, you know, considerably better than some of what we've seen in the past, I would say. I don't know if he really gets much use as much as they could. You know, I feel like he's a little bit wasted in a way.
I feel like he's kind of the opposite to a lot of characters in the Johnny Wickles franchise, in that like his character and the person is more interesting than the fighting.
Yes.
A lot of people in this
agree.
franchise are boring and set their fighting styles, whereas he's the opposite. His fighting style is pretty cool, partly because he's blind.
Yeah, there's some unique bits they do.
But he's a bit underused in that.
He is a bit underused.
His actual character is kind of more interesting.
I feel like he needed like one extra fight scene to really prove like his worth as a kind of, as a threat almost as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
And we have Bill Skarsgård as the Marquis something.
Yeah.
Who's an interesting villain. Definitely memorable in his various outfits he keeps wearing. Lots of very old-fashioned three-piece suits, which are quite fun.
I think he's more fleshed out than some previous villains. I've still got my issues with him as a villain. But I feel like compared to the villains of the past, like the Italian guy in the second one.
Who, like you said, when we recorded, just looks like somebody you'd walk past in the street, really, doesn't he?
Whereas if I walk past Bill Skarsgård as the monkey, I'd be like, holy fuck, is that Bill Skarsgård?
I always get really surprised about how tall he is as well. There's a bit towards the start where he kind of comes towards another character, like he's in this whole speech, and he gets closer to him, and you're like, fucking hell, he's massive.
I had that towards the end, actually, where you see four of the main characters kind of standing near each other, and he was like taller than the rest.
He must be like 6'5" or something, or like getting up to that kind of height.
But he doesn't look it. I think he's not got a tall man's face.
He's very well he's very well proportioned. But like, he's in proportion, and he's very thin, and I think that makes it kind of look even more imposing, which works in his favor. He's not a particularly physical villain, is he? He's more of the kind of mastermind of this.
Exactly. Really? Which I think works quite well with these films because it's so full of action people who shoot and fight and swing swords.
Yes.
It's interesting to have somebody who's none of that and is just kind of the puppeteer.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we kind of got that with the lady last time who was kind of going around and telling people off or whatever.
Yeah.
Called the adjudicator. Yeah.
And you get it a bit on the other side with Ian McShane's character, who I don't think we've ever seen fight anyone.
No, I wasn't sure if we were going to maybe get a bit of that. And I mean, it's not really a spoiler to say he doesn't do much physical stuff. He's not really that kind of actor, is he? But there is an actor who we haven't mentioned yet, who had an untimely passing recently, which was Lance Reddick, who plays Sharon, the concierge in these series of films.
Yeah, who is great fun throughout the first three films. I think his role kind of picks up more through those three films. In the third one, particularly when there's the siege of
he gets a nice little action bit in that, doesn't he?
And he has some kind of heartwarming bits in this.
Yeah, he's definitely got some more emotional aspects.
And it really kind of highlights his relationship with Ian McShane's character.
Yeah, that's kind of a driving force of a lot of this from their perspectives, isn't it, really? Yeah. But I don't need to go too much into what he's known for, but apparently The Wire was one of his breakout roles. I've not seen The Wire, unfortunately.
Nor have I. I've seen him in Lost.
Lost, yes. Fringe he was in, which I watched quite a bit of. In a lot of these, he played like a boss of an agency or like FBI chief or whatever. He's that kind of character.
I think in Lost he's a similar character to the John Wick films, where he's just kind of like he's working for someone else and he's
kind of mysterious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But he was also he was a voice actor. He voiced a few characters in different animated things.
He's in a Batman thing.
He's in a Batman
Ra's al Ghul?
Yes, he might be. He voiced Falcon in an Avengers thing around 2012.
Right.
He is a voice actor in video games. Apparently, he was in Destiny 2. And apparently he was a big fan of the game as well and would go on and play with people, like do raids with them.
Oh, I think I saw that. That's quite fun.
And somebody looked and he was online the night before he passed away. So he was playing games right to the end, which was quite sweet. And apparently a talented musician as well, which I never knew about. He used to do, I think music was his original thing before he went into acting, which was quite interesting.
He was a cool guy.
And he's also actually going to be playing Zeus in the new Percy Jackson series. So I imagine they'll have to do some recasting there because I think they've already filmed that. But yeah, we won't go too much. We can go into spoilers in a moment, can't we? And talk about Sharon's aspect of the... Should we go straight into that now?
Yeah, let's say spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, everybody. That's 10.5 minutes of it.
Yeah, so Sharon's death,
yes,
I think was quite well done.
I was quite surprised. To be honest.
Yeah, and it was like quite heartfelt, and it kind of makes sense because what is this character meant to do for the rest of the film? Because they don't have the hotel.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, and it gives Ian McShane, Winston, a kind of reason to kind of turn back on the high table and join Johnny Wickles again. And we kind of got the reveal there that there wasn't any kind of plot. Where he was involved in Johnny Wickles, he was just literally looking out for himself.
Yeah,
we weren't really sure at the end of 3, were we?
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because that kind of never really comes back in this film. Like Johnny Wickles is never angry with Winston, I think at one point he's
just like.
Yeah, but they then just work together again. I was like, okay, he's fine with people betraying him then. We also get introduced, which we didn't mention up front, to Clancy Brown coming in as the Harbinger, who's just kind of an adjudicator.
Pretty much. Just
but less kind of... Yeah, the adjudicator was leading an attack.
Yes.
He's very much like, I'm just making sure everyone follows the rules.
In a way, they probably should have changed those names around.
100%.
Because he was literally adjudicating this. They're probably like, fuck's sake. It was great when he comes in, you can see he's got the cut off finger from the third one. He's done whatever for the high table. And he starts speaking. I was like, yes, that's right.
He's got a very distinctive voice, Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
We also get introduced to a character who's known as Mr. Nobody.
Yes.
And his dog. His dog's great.
Yeah, it's basically all the best stuff from Halle Berry's character in the previous film.
Yeah.
When you first see a dog walking, I was like, okay, there's just one dog. Is this... And it's not Halle Berry. I was like, I guess she wasn't popular enough to come back in this.
But the dog does a load of stuff, kills a load of people. Yeah, it's great fun
stuff with it. Yeah, and there's some points towards the end where it's because he's a tracker, isn't he? And he's really good. He's got all these notes on Johnny Wickles about his past and mainly it's just symbols with like annotations next to it. And he's like, oh yeah, it's for us really, isn't it? But yeah, he there's the part where he's kind of he wants to get the price right before he kills Johnny Wickles, and he's almost got a goal of, I think it was 50 million.
50 million,
and he never quite gets the bargain up to that. There's the part where Johnny Wickles almost gets him and he's almost going to shoot him, and then he sees the dog's in trouble and he's like, and it's once again, it's like animal life means much more than human lives in these films.
It's a nice callback to the first one because Johnny Wickles understands his relationship with his dog. Yeah. And in doing that, Mr. Nobody then kind of switches to his side. And
although his character arc kind of ends there, doesn't it, really? Like he watches the finale, watches the duel, but it's kind of just like I guess that makes sense. There wasn't much for him to do further.
No,
I was half expecting him to get up and try and do something at the end or something like that.
Yeah, he helps on the stairs at one point where he kills the main henchman.
Yeah, he does.
Guy. Speaking of the stairs, he's got 222 steps or something to walk up to the church or wherever it is.
As soon as he gets to the bottom, there's like guys come out all over the place, and it's very like a lot of that. The finale from that point on is very like Western, isn't it? There's lots of like Western motifs in sound. Yeah. There's lots of quick draws.
I also found it quite video gamey of just like never-ending wave of villains. So you fight them and then another wave comes. Yeah. And it was so funny when he gets nearly to the top and then falls. And he falls and he gets just to an edge and then rolls over the next set of stairs. And it just keeps going.
And then he gets up, has the fight, and then he chucks him down the rest of the stairs. It's just like, fucking hell,
It's like something out of like an Austin Powers film.
Yeah, it really was. Like that. I think that was intentionally funny though. That part,
it was.
Yeah, compared to the other part where he's in Paris and he's in the apartment building, and there's some great bits in there, but it ends where he just decides to jump out of this window. He falls like 2.5 stories. and
On a
bounces
car.
off like a van, and then just like slowly gets
like,
up and goes.
"Oh."
But speaking of the bit in there, one of my favorite
Yes.
bits visually, anyway, was he's got this shotgun that has like incendiary rounds. I think
Yeah.
it said Dragon's Breath or something on
But
the
you
bullets.
see the villains
You see them
preparing the
preparing,
bullets,
and they do a practice. And he's got that, and it's almost all shot from like bird's eye view, like top
Yeah.
down. So it's obviously like a set with the roof cut off kind of thing. But it's really, really like interestingly shot, and especially with the fire, you can really tell who's who, and it's just
and you can just kind of see him walking around this. It's like an abandoned apartment, room to room.
Yeah,
and it's like it is really cool
It's
watching
really
it,
cool,
and
yeah.
like fairly unique. I haven't really seen that used very
It reminded
often.
me, speaking of video games, there's a few like Hotline Miami and a couple other ones that use that kind of thing. And that was one of the bits I was like, damn, because especially as that's like almost 2 hours into the film, and you're like, it's still doing new things.
Yeah, exactly.
And keeping you going there. Yeah. But there's the Paris bit's good. There's the bit with the Arc de Triomphe that you mentioned. I think that was one of the bits where I was like, I'm back in again kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because the cars, everyone's fucking driving around this roundabout that's like fucking 10 cars,
10 lanes.
like 10 lanes. And nobody's stopping for this obvious firefight going on. People are just constantly, because we can't see the sides, so somebody just randomly gets hit by a car, and it goes on for like a good 10 minutes, and the tension's like really high in that bit.
It's another thing where like in this universe, civilians do not care about violence.
Not at all, no. And there's the bit in the club in Berlin where people are like dancing while watching like a bloody fist fight and stuff.
Someone getting axed to the head, and they're like, oh yeah.
It's very silly, but the Paris bit as well, like I think they did a good job of getting Johnny Wickles back to basics. Like they get him like a fresh clean suit. I think it's the first time he's had the white shirt. Don't know if that's redemption, or maybe it's just so you can see the blood in the final duel. But they give him back like a really good little pistol, and he's just got that for pretty much that whole Paris part.
Yeah.
And I think that was really like, because we've spoken before about like Johnny Wickles 1 is quite, simple and grounded. And I think although the set pieces are more wild in this, they kind of did a good job of grounding it again for that part.
I feel like, they look back on the last 3 films and they're like, what were the best bits? And kind of like, right, we'll try and do that.
Yeah.
And also as well, like introducing use of new weapons, like the bit in Osaka where he gets the nunchucks.
Oh, fantastic.
Absolutely brilliant.
So good. And I love it. He's putting them over his neck and he's shooting away, and then he's pulling them back off over the back of his neck. Oh, so
it's just great. It's just
I would have been
fun.
happy if he'd kept them for the rest of the film. Like honestly, it was great. Like we spoke about last week with Johnny Wickles 3, that some of the more inventive parts that I liked anyway was when he was doing a bit more martial arts and the guns were almost put aside. They did a good job of combining like 2 things at once with this one. And
agreed.
It fresh there.
It's good fun. I was going to say, just overall, for what is a long film, it's nearly 3 hours long. It's pretty well paced throughout.
I would say so.
There was never bits where I was kind of like, oh, okay,
this
is a bit slow. It's fairly fast.
I would say it takes a little bit to get going, but if you know it's gonna be a lengthy film, it's not like, it's probably about half an hour, 25 minutes to get going.
And then I think because they go to Osaka and then Berlin and then Paris and then have multiple bits in Paris.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of keeps you going.
Absolutely.
It's like, which is quite an achievement for nearly 3 hours.
It's pretty much like an intro to set up the New York part, then in 3/3 almost. Isn't it?
Exactly.
Pretty much. Yeah. And the stuff in Osaka, we don't need to talk about it too much, but it starts off with the guys in the armor coming in, and that felt very reminiscent of Johnny Wickles 3, when it's like the fully armored people.
Yeah.
And some of that initially I was a bit like, it doesn't feel as like weighty because everyone's actually, you're going to talk about the clothes, weren't you?
Yeah.
We've had the bulletproof clothes a few times before.
But it's kind of taken to ridiculous levels in this, where it's just got like a normal suit.
It's the grey guys as well. They seem to all be like...
And everyone's got this... And like like bulletproof like vests and stuff really hurt if you still get you see people get shot and they get big bruises and stuff. He's getting like a machine gun at this suit.
At one point I noticed he had like a thing on his shoulder when he was talking to Winston at the graveyard, and I was like, has he got a bit of bird shit on him? And then later on you see that there are like little white marks, but that's it. Like it just looks like he's been spattered with
that
like,
is ridiculous.
and he's using it as like a Dracula cape, like going around corners, and it's like it makes sense because if everyone was shooting constantly, they can't all be missing and they can't all be hitting. So I can see why they've done it, but it really is silly. Like you really have to suspend your like disbelief.
Although
for that, don't you?
it was funny at the end of the film where he then takes his suit jacket off and you just hear all the bullets cases like dropping out. Yeah.
There's some good stuff. I was just gonna say with the samurai stuff, there's great stuff with the bow. There's the daughter who we found out afterwards played by pop star Rina Sawayama. Who she's got some pretty good music if anyone's like into that kind of thing. There's cool stuff with bow and arrows. And there's the fun bit where her dad, Koji, I think he's called, who is a guy that we've seen in many things playing a very similar character.
Hiroyuki Sanada, I think his name is.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think Sanada. There's a bit where it's kind of building to like a samurai duel kind of thing where it's like him versus Donnie Yen. Yeah. And that's it feels like it feels very like hitting the genre like set pieces.
Exactly.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah. And then we've got Berlin with Augustus Gloop.
Yeah, that was just bizarre.
Very bizarre.
In lots of ways. Like it was fun. It was like a classic James Bond villain. And it was bizarre, which it's quite nice because it's good. You've got a mix of villains in each location kind of at this point. Like Donnie Yen's introduced in Osaka, who's more blind samurai. You've got a fat guy with gold teeth in Berlin, and then Paris is like the marquis, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very different villains, but it was funny that he was like, as we mentioned on the trip over here, he's very like Kingpin in
very
that.
Much
very
that,
athletic and can fight, but he's just this huge fat guy.
Some of those high kicks and you're like, okay, that's not really a guy that way. We found out after it's Scott Adkins, who's a stuntman and performer and that sort of thing. But it was, I think that was probably the shortest section out of the film, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Because it has its reasons. It's the whole Roma Ruska thing, and Ruska Roma, whichever way around it was, I can't remember. But I think personally, I think that bit was the bit that was probably the least interesting out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Because they kind of repeat the club bit, but make it more extreme. The club from John Wick,
Johnny
Wickles one.
Although I would say
when he falls on his head, though, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. They roll over and he's pulling like a silliest face. I would say that I think like the Osaka stuff, whilst fun, could be cut out and not make any difference to this film.
Yeah, I really liked it though. So.
Yeah, no, I did really like it, but kind of the consequences of that I kind of already established.
Yeah, especially when Rina Sawayama's like, I'm gonna get him, and then that's the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's kind of like
okay. I did wonder that as the credits coming up, I was like, oh, she never did really come back into it, did she? And then she did.
Weird, pointless post-credit scene that's nothing to do with Johnny Wickles.
I was hoping for him poking his head around a tree, but I guess that's more implied than anything.
Before we fully go into negatives, it's worth talking about the climax of the film, which is this duel between Johnny Wickles and Kane, which I think is brilliant, considering most of these films is him running around shooting people. To have an actually organised duel where they do 30 paces
and with like a bit of tension building, and
you've got Ian McShane, Clancy Brown, Bill Skarsgård, Mr. Nobody and his dog, just like watching. Just chilling.
He's having a beer. It's great. Yeah. And it just, I really agree with you there. Like it's such a change of pace, but it really works for this film. Like it means that is the final conflict with the film, isn't it?
Exactly.
And considering it was ramping up, and it's quite a brave move to just be like, now it is almost like having like a sword fight or something at the end.
It's like let's cut all the bullshit.
Yeah.
Two guys shoot, and then he does kill Bill Skarsgård, which is great.
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
I do think it's a bit silly. Oh yeah. Well, we're talking about negative step, but that was fantastic, and it worked in the you kind of weren't sure if there was a bit of a plan going on, or and even at the end, it's kind of unclear about how much of that was planned, or if it's just them kind of being like, I'm not trying to kill you. We're trying to kill this guy. It's kind of unspoken stuff. There is a bit where they do a little code word of like those who cling to death and stuff. And it's like, everyone's looking around going like, what the fuck is going on? Like, is this like a thing? I feel like there was some unspoken like plan there, kind of.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise
But
me.
Going into negatives there, if you're happy to start.
Yeah.
I do feel like although Donnie Yen's character was fun and like you say had a lot of heart and kind of interesting backstory, there was this kind of missing threat with him because we knew that he wasn't fully committed to killing Johnny Wickles.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, like his gunplay stuff seemed to just be him just wildly shooting in the direction.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why when he then, because he's blind, when he comes to do the duel, it's like he's not the best person to put in this.
It's really stupid. And like,
I know that you can't move in it or whatever, and so it's just like aim in that direction and shoot. But he's like at a real. He like it's not even like
he does get 3 shots on target.
Yeah, like
it's just like it's cool having like a blind assassin, like how his character was cool in Rogue One.
Yeah,
but there's lots of elements of this where like not a single person tries to be quiet around them so they can get a line of sight and shoot him.
No,
nobody does that. And everyone's running around making noise, and it's like, what are you doing?
And he has like that moment in Osaka where he uses like the 3 proximity sensors to like track where people are. Yeah. He never does that again.
No.
And it's like, if you're relying on that, you're obviously not the best person for the job.
Yeah.
Like it almost felt like I wanted the final person who was hunting him down to be like this person who like fucking is just going to absolutely annihilate him.
Yeah.
And it seemed like
a real threat that's
like,
scary.
I don't really know why Johnny Wickles couldn't beat him every time they fought.
No.
It's only because he'd already fought 100 people before each time. Like,
yeah.
That was the thing that really, that's probably my main negative from the whole film, really. Like,
I've got a few.
Yeah.
There's one bit towards the end. So he's kind of hanging out with the Bowery King. Lawrence Fishburne comes back.
Oh, yeah.
He does his thing. And then he decides he's got to get to the church by like thing. So he decides to run around Paris for a few hours, and I was like,
yeah,
why is he doing that?
Well, like, he says to the Bowery King, like, how close can you get me? And it turns out not very close at all.
Close at all.
Because they just go in a speedboat underwater rather than like on the tube.
Yeah, and like it just seems really stupid that he literally spends a few hours. He's like it is one last action thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, why are you running around Paris?
And he's literally hitting all the landmarks so that the radio lady can be like, hello, everybody. I quite like that. It was quite fun. It really felt like a Tarantino kind of thing, actually.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of.
But yeah, it's like, why is he doing this? Another thing that I kind of discovered towards the end of this film is that whilst he's a great assassin and great with a gun and great at fighting, Johnny Wickles is a dumb man. And like, it's
all that falling out of windows, you know, it does that to him.
There seemed to be lots of revelations and stuff where he just got confused or just didn't know about stuff, and it was like everyone knows about what's going on except him.
Yes,
like where they say at the final bit that Winston's gonna get his hotel back, and he's like, wait, what?
He's like, what? You did it? You weren't doing it for me? And it's like, this guy shot you like however long ago.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't really understand anything. He just kind of goes around killing people. And it's like, it feels very prominent in this. And and then it comes across in some of the dialogue as well.
Absolutely,
he's like,
yeah. They did learn from their mistakes in some ways and just made him say a lot.
I saw
what was it when he says like, I'm gonna kill them all. He sounds like he's struggling to get the words out.
I saw,
is that like an intentional, like he's
maybe I saw a review that said Keanu Reeves' acting in this is like somebody learning to talk for the first time.
Yeah.
It really does feel like that. And we mentioned it on the previous ones that it's not his strong point, but
no, it really confuses me.
It just takes you out the film a bit when he says something.
It's got to be an intentional choice because, you know, he's not the most eloquent person, but he's always very charming when you hear him in interviews and in appearances. And he's just doing this really strange, like, intonation and delivery in this that just... I guess it's memorable in some ways. It's not very good at all. No.
Yeah. Again, it's got the classic thing that they keep building up from film to film, that there is thousands and thousands and thousands of people involved in this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why no one's reacting in public. They're like, oh, it's my day off. I'm not going to get involved.
Yeah, it just seems like the entire world are in on this. I just thought it was
really funny when they put out the call on the radio. They're like, they've got all the code words. It's quite fun. It's like, there's a man in black. I also like, anyone could tune into that. And then when they're like, it's happening there, and then the person listening sees like a shooting happen, they'd be like, I'm gonna call the police because they just reported this before it happened.
Although police seem to stop existing after like the second film.
Oh, totally. I was wondering what was going on with that, but just when they're putting out the call in Paris, and it's like everyone's getting all their guns. I'm like, first of all, like Paris, like hopefully, but as far as I know, doesn't have a lot of guns just everywhere. But apparently in this world, everybody's got guns. And it seems like the threat is somehow even higher in Paris than it was in any other place. I know that's just because of the way the film was going. Like it was fine and I accepted it, but it's silly and it's
very,
it
very
doesn't really
silly.
Make any sense.
It's very silly and it kind of it's. I think between things like that and his like indestructibility, like the bulletproof suit and stuff, it gets to the point it's like this isn't set in the real world. No, the first one maybe.
The first one could be because it's so like isolated
and like secretive and stuff.
Yeah, it's all like
this is not the real world.
Or yeah. No, absolutely. I think from the second one when the person playing a violin turns around with a gun or whatever, like. But that's fine. But like, I would almost. I think we spoke about it in the very first episode of these that we did, like 4 weeks ago, or whatever it was. That like, it really skirts this line between being like really silly and like really serious, and I think it's still somehow like skating right down that line there. Yeah,
which is great.
It is great because it allows you to enjoy it in like more than one way. But it's just like I was half expecting this to fully like jump the shark and just. I don't know what, but like, people start injecting shit that makes them superpowered. That's the kind of thing they could have done at the end of this. And I probably would have just gone along with it. Like, okay,
sure.
Fine. But I'm glad they didn't. But I guess in that way, it kept us guessing right to the end.
Have you got anything else? I've got a couple of bits of trivia.
Nothing much I can think of. No. Actually, I did like when Mr. Nobody had the bulletproof backpack and then he pulled down the vest. Yeah. Also, he was great. Like with his shotgun, he was very unique. It felt like a character you play in like a video game. Like very distinctive. Cool outfit, little beanie, and the backpack. He just, I liked him. I thought he was cool.
He's great. Yeah. So, according to star Keanu Reeves and director Chad Stahelski, during a post-screening Q&A, it is ultimately up to the audience to decide whether Johnny is really dead at the end of the film.
Okay, yeah.
When they asked the audience if they believed he was still alive, the audience almost unanimously agreed that he is.
Yes. Well, I mentioned to you at the end that. So the dog that was his from the end of the second one, end of the first film, of the first film, who's now the Bowery King's dog. There's a moment after they finish speaking at the grave that the dog kind of goes and looks off camera, and that's when I was expecting a little. My head's coming out from behind a tree.
I definitely think he's alive.
It's the only way to get him off radar, isn't it? You pretend he's dead.
I think the fact that they've spoken about potentially doing a fifth one in the future.
Yeah. Well, they were going to do at some point.
If he's not. That works well as well. It's a great send-off for the character.
And they can easily just have him come back a little bit grayer and be like, I'm saving the day or whatever. Yeah. But they were... it's like, someone has to like feed him all his lines. Are you going to save the day, John? Yeah. Are you back, John? Yeah.
How are you going to do it? I'm gonna kill them.
This has got 2 lines. But there was talks before of doing it was one with Ana de Armas, and it was like I think it was called Ballerina or something. It was going to be a spin-off. Right. No idea if that's still happening. Maybe they'll do that in the middle between. Did you have any ideas or any notes about where it's going?
Well, they said that they're going to sit on it for a while. So I think we may in maybe 4 or 5 years hear some stuff.
I mean, there was a few characters in this that could have spin-offs. Mr. Nobody, like he was 100%. A very, it was like the start of his story almost, and he kind of had that look in his eyes that maybe he was in the wrong path kind of thing. Towards the end, he was kind of like, this place is fucking shit. Like everyone hates each other here. It's awful.
I kind of hope that in this, it was as it's going, that it'd culminate with them kind of overthrowing the high table,
right?
Because the high table were breaking all their rules as much as everyone else. Like they blew. They went and had 2 shootouts in 2 different continentals.
Because they were the ones that could just be like deconsecrated, boom.
Yeah, and they just seemed to be extending their power a bit much. So I thought it was going to go down that line where Johnny Wickles and Ian McShane overthrow the high table and kind of reset
But
the
then
system.
I guess they've got to then be involved, and the whole point is it's just like,
and it gets a bit too like political for these films. Like,
yeah, true, yeah. It's almost the the message of this is almost like do what you can, but don't do too much, and just know when to kind of walk away and leave everything as it is.
Don't worry if like hundreds of people die because of what you're doing. Because when he turned up in Osaka and Venus Samiyama was like, "You coming here is like sent us all to death." And he was like, I was like, "Yeah, she's right. Like, why the fuck has he gone there?"
Yeah, like loads of people died. She almost died. His friend Koji died.
Yeah.
God, yeah. That's what, like you say, he's not a smart character, is he?
No. Do you want to have a guess at Johnny Wickles' estimated kill count for this film?
Hard to tell, isn't it? Because there's a lot of kills that were done by all sorts of people. I think last time we were down to like 80 something, weren't we? Or 90.
I can have a quick check.
It was 50 something, 75, 120, something like that. I can't remember.
So the first film he kills 77.
Right, yeah.
The second film he kills 116.
Yes, and then I think this went. Then the third one went down a bit.
94.
94, right, okay. I mean, there's a lot of kills in this, so I'm gonna just push it up to 130.
140.
Oh, okay.
I think because it's longer. It's like an hour longer than the first one.
Yeah.
Which I think brings his kill count up to about 340 for the four films, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest mass murderers in history.
Yeah. But they're all bad guys, so it's fine. Yeah.
I think in this film as well, there was a lot more non-Johnny Wickles deaths than in previous ones. As you mentioned, there's lots of firefights. So the only thing left to say is, did Johnny Wickles Chapter 4 live up to the hype for you, Sam? Proj yes or proj no?
I think it did. I think proj yes. I think it being the first one I saw in the cinema, and obviously watching through all these and getting, pretty hyped for them generally, it pretty much did exactly what I was expecting. So yeah, proj yes. How about yourself?
I'm also going proj yes. I think from what I've seen in some discussions and some reviews, I think it's starting to get a little bit overrated. It wasn't a great film.
No.
It was good fun. And for that, I'm saying proj yes, because I went into this being like, I want to see Johnny Wickles go around shooting loads of people. Different cinematography, different locations, different types of thing, with a plot interest enough that keeps you through.
Yeah.
It does all that, so it's a proj yes for me.
I think, plot-wise, it's probably the best apart from the first one. The first one's simple, this one's complicated, but it mostly works. Yeah, I would agree in all those aspects there.
Okay, cool. So that ends our Johnny Wickles watch through. Essentially, we're straight in with another silver screen project coming up, so keep an eye out for that. We've actually already recorded the first part of it, so that'll be on your...
I think we might have said what it was on the Project episode, which is the main podcast. If you want to hear more stuff like this, it's on the same feed as this podcast. So yeah, listen to that and find out what the next silver screen's going to be. You can probably guess if you look at the cinemas.
Yeah, probably. Thank you for joining us, and we'll hear you next time.
Yeah, see you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.